Seeing as we've reached the hour of 10 o'clock, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Chaplin. Here. Coburn. Evans. Ozog.
Here.
Tornatore.
Here.
And Zay.
Here.
Okay, we're going to move on now to public comment, and I believe we have one person who'd like to speak.
Okay. Just staying here is good.
That's fine, thank
All right,
you.
great, thank you.
I need to read something first. Our county board rules allow for 30 minutes total of public comment, with individuals having 3 minutes to speak.
Right, I'm gonna do my best.
Okay, thank you.
I've got some.
Where the TV can see you.
What's that?
If you want to stand behind me, that'd be
Sure.
good.
You want to be on TV?
Well, I combed my hair today.
There you
so
go. I think
guess
you
that's
should.
good.
Thank you. Is this, wow,
Thank
this
you.
is one
Hope
packet?
This doesn't count as my 3 minutes. All right.
Oh, take one packet.
My name is Don Kirchenberg. Good morning. I live in Winfield, Illinois, and I've been a resident of DuPage County for over 30 years. I started the Friends of the Great Western Trails in 1995, and we have been voluntarily cleaning the trail since then. And along the way, I served on the board of the Illinois Prairie Path for 9 years, 7 years as president, where we fought with the neighbors and beat ComEd twice. I'm here to talk about the unsafe Great Western Trail crossing at County Farm Road, where 2 bicycle riders have been seriously injured. The Great Western Trail has approximately 82,000 users annually, according to the last study by the DuPage DOT several years ago. Many families use the crossing at County Farm Road to go to the increasingly popular Pine Creek Farm Visitor Center immediately south of the Great Western Trail. Hundreds of trail users cross County Farm Road on the weekends. We are thankful for your support of the Great Western Trail, including the recent expansion west of Route 59. But something needs to be done to protect the trail users attempting to cross the multi-lane highway with 14,000 vehicles a day. To stay within the 3 minutes, I cannot list all the groups, state, county, and local officials that support the need for a safer crossing, but I want to mention a few of the bipartisan supporters, including Al Murphy, the local Forest Preserve Commissioner, Sheila Rutledge, a local DuPage County Board member, Daniel Hebriard, the president of the DuPage County Forest Preserve District, and other commissioners. Recently, we received the support of a safer crossing by Deb Conroy, DuPage County Chair. And a local elected official, I love this quote from Deb Piscola, a trustee of the village of Winfield, who said, "Everybody I talk to supports a safer crossing and a traffic signal proposal presented by Greg Schwarzy of the DuPage County Board." Even the Daily Herald had an editorial calling for a safer crossing, and on the reverse side of that flyer, you will see that editorial. We want to thank Greg Schwarzy for his excellent proposal of having a traffic signal installed at Timber Creek and Hawthorne at County Farm Road. We believe it's a win-win for trail users and the local community, and we hope you agree. Thank you. How they do it. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And we have no other public comment. Okay, thank you. Next, I'm going to move for approval of the minutes. Item 23-0858, recommendation for the approval of the minutes of February 7th. And I have a second from Member Chaplin. Any comments or changes to the minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have budget transfers. I move for approval of 23-0859, budget transfer $390, contingencies to water and sewer.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, everybody in favor? Okay, I move for approval of 23-0860, budget transfer of $40,000 to contingencies to matching funds and contributions. I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, And finally, a transfer 230861, budget transfer 44,000 from per diem stipend to wearing apparel reimbursement. And I
Second.
have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next up, we have a procurement requisition. I move for approval of DTP 005323, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Applied Research Associates for pavement condition rating and annual maintenance and support services for the DuPage County Pavement Management Program for a contract total not to exceed $125,125.55,
Second.
not subject to competitive bidding. I have a second. Any comments or questions about this item? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, I move for approval of DTP 005423, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Christopher Burke Engineering to provide Phase 2 professional design engineering services for the flashing yellow Arrow Corridor project along County Highway 38 and 63rd Street from Suffield Court to Americana Drive for a contract total not to exceed $254,905.15, vetted through qualification-based selection process. And I have a second from Member Chaplin. Any comments or questions about this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Change orders. I move for approval of 230862, Crown Industries decrease in close.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And next one, 230863, Verizon Wireless decrease in close. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and fine, and we have now an ordinance. I move for approval of DTO 004723, ordinance for the alteration of the statutory speed limit on Purnell Road from Winfield Road to 2,732 feet southwest south of Gary's Mill Road from 40 miles an hour to 35 miles an hour. Second, any comments about this item? Okay.
Question, is that going to be, is that going to be enforced? Is anybody going to be checking traffic to see if it actually is going out?
So what we do is we'll send a communication, if it's approved by the county board, we'll send communication to Winfield. We'll also typically advise our sheriff's office because they'll do some, I believe they have the enforcement authority out here because it's unincorporated, for them to do kind of increased selective enforcement of the 35 mile an hour speed limit.
Is there like data collection to see like what the average speed was before and what the average speed is after? Does anybody know how they do the traffic studies?
Yeah, we've done a full traffic study. We put people out, individuals, and we did radar detection for the average speeds of the vehicles. Anybody familiar with this section of Purnell Road knows it's narrow, it's undulating, it's residential in character, and so that led to the recommendation to lower it.
Okay, I was just wondering if they're gonna be able to check and see how effective lowering the actual speed limit is.
I don't think we rely on the increased enforcement by our in this case the sheriff.
Sure.
I don't think we have anything up there today. Do we
Not
have?
normally, and because it's a township road, it's really the township highway commissioner who takes the lead in that. And they approach us and ask us to do an initial study. If they wanted a follow-up study, the sheriff can do it through their own speed feedback trailer that they have. Or we could do it if the highway commissioner was interested in doing a follow-up. But they have a real close relationship with their assigned deputies. So they work with them directly. Yeah, we get involved only because the county engineer has the statutory requirement that the townships have to get his approval for signage. So any change in signage has to go through the county engineer, and then in this case, because it's a speed limit, it has to go through the committee and board as well.
Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not part of this committee, but I'm here this morning because of this agenda item. This is in my district. I travel this road all the time. There are speed limit warning signs, so they are solar powered. So if you exceed the current 40 mile an hour, it'll flash at you. Even if you're going less than 40, which is a little odd, but it's a Google cut through. So the Google cut through made life miserable for the people that live along Purnell Road, but because of the way the property lines are drawn, they really cannot expand this road. And that community is very involved with keeping their community the same, let's just say that, which I commend them for that, but I've told them, I'm like, you know, you cannot stop the change all around you. Put your collective power behind fixing the road, because the property lines come to the middle of the road. So I support this change to 35 miles an hour, but I have the same question as you, is, you know, really is it going to slow everybody down to 35? I think it will help, but
It's a start.
it's a start, yeah. So I'm supportive of that.
Okay. Member Desart, did you have?
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering, I was wondering what the rationale for the lowering of the speed limit was. Were there accidents here? Was it a problem? But based on Member Rutledge's questions, I'm kind of getting that the neighborhood wasn't happy with the higher.
Yeah, no
speed.
sidewalks, up and down. You know, I think for them, they're always looking at it as a safety issue.
They didn't
You can't
near,
walk along that road. It's scary to do that.
they didn't need or
Well,
want
that's
to be a
pretty
Google
much
cut
in
through.
all of unincorporated DuPage County where there's no sidewalks. So it's not,
Yeah, but
to that
Google's
neighborhood.
directed way more
Yeah.
traffic to that road than a lot of those types of roads.
Unintended consequences.
Yeah,
So, any other comments or questions about this item? Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Okay. All right, and then I move on to old business, and we're going to have a discussion now about crossing study alternatives, or crossing alternatives at the Great Western Trail at County Farm Road. And I'm going to first turn it over to Chris. And
So I'll go ahead and start the topic, and I'll turn it over to our Assistant County Engineer, Bill Edson, to kind of walk through the exhibits before you. So for the benefit of members not familiar with this location or being on the committee, this is the crossing of the Great Western Trail, just north of Geneva Road, south of St. Charles, just a couple miles north of here. Over the period of years, we've been asked to look at this location for any safety enhancements, and we've looked at traffic signals in the past, but we'll talk a little about that. We've augmented the signage that's out there today. It's all MUTCD compliant. TCD manual, uniform traffic control devices. That's kind of the national standard for how you sign crosswalks and any traffic control signs on the county highway system. We've done some mast arm signage, so signing even over the crossing to augment its location. You know, better identify that you're approaching a crossing. About 6 months ago, the county board lowered the speed limit on this section of County Farm Road to lower the traffic and make the intersection safer. Last June, in response to inquiries about signalization and safety at the location, this committee tasked the DOT to kind of do a more robust evaluation, not just of the crossing, but other options, including realignment, signalization, and other technology that's out there. So we've done that. You have before you kind of the alternatives that were evaluated. So without taking any thing from Bill, he'll walk through the presentations, and at the end, we're going to talk about staff's suggestion in terms of moving forward with.
There we go.
Great, thank you, Chris. So like Chris mentioned, the members, you have before you a set of exhibits. Just the first one is a project location map that kind of gives you an overview of the area. You can see circled in red the trail crossing. There's a traffic signal at the intersection of County Farm and Hawthorne, and then at the very top of the exhibit, North Avenue, St. Charles and County Farm traffic signal. There's not a traffic signal in Hawthorne, and that's one of the locations that a number of folks have expressed interest in, as well as the Great Western Trail itself. So currently have, if you look at exhibit 2, the second page, you can see what Chris was just describing. We currently have in the area. There's some street level photos showing the different signages, the approach of the trail itself at County Farm Road is on the right. Little stop sign there for the trail users. The approach of Hawthorne and Timber Trails is shown below. And then some of the signage for the pedestrian crosswalk is shown as well. And you can see the mast arms in the background in addition to the post mounted signs like you would normally see. In the bottom of that exhibit are a few things that kind of summarize the characteristics of the roadway. So in the table on the left is the roadway data, and you can see the Average daily traffic is ADT. County Farm Road, the data we have right now shows 26,500 vehicles per day. Hawthorne Lane has about 315 vehicles per day. And then the Great Western Trail, on a weekend count, we counted 375 users for the day. And as Chris mentioned, the posted speed limit was changed in August of 2022. And at the bottom on the right is kind of a crash summary of the crash data, that this is what's going to be in the overall study that gets provided to us by the consultant. The first little diagram says crash diagrams, County Farm Road at Great Western Trail. And there's been one incident of a bicyclist who was hit by the car in September of 2020. And that's one of the ones that prompted the discussion at the committee. There have been, in the exhibit on the right, there have been 2 either pedestrian or bicyclist involved crashes at Hawthorne. Both of them were notably involved users who were crossing Hawthorne. So they were crossing northbound or southbound, not crossing County Farm Road. So the Great Western Trail incident, the user was crossing County Farm Road. The Hawthorne incidents, they were not. They were crossing Hawthorne.
How many years does this go back?
Well, so we pulled crash data for the Great Western Trail from 2004 to present. At Great Western Trail, there have been 4 crashes during that time. So over
2004.
17 years.
Okay.
So we don't, when I say present, it's through 2021. We don't have, we don't get the data until the end of the next year. We get the data.
The 4 crashes, you said?
4 crashes. 2 of them were animal crashes. 1 was a rear end, and then this one bicycle crash. So in 17 years, there have been 1 vehicle crash, 2 crashes, presumably hitting deer. That's normally what gets reported as animal, and then the one bicycle crash. Okay, moving on to the third page, which is labeled Alternative 1A. This is the simplest of the alternatives that the consultant developed as part of their work. It's basically building a physical barrier median in place of the existing striped median. So it's your concrete raised median, 9 inches, and then there would be a gap in the middle of the median for pedestrians to cross, cyclists to cross. And then, as you can see from the exhibit, we've shown additional signage going in the median. So that's the colored signage is the proposed, the white and black signage represents the existing. Obviously, it's the actual signage itself is all in color. So that's alternative 1A. If you turn to the next page, you get to alternative 1B. Now this brings us to the refuge island with what's called a pedestrian hybrid beacon. And there's an important distinction that needs to be understood. A traffic signal, a typical red, yellow, green traffic signal, in order to install it, we need to meet the criteria that's in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the MUTCD, that Chris mentioned before. There's specific criteria in terms of the number of pedestrians, the number of vehicles, the circumstances surrounding the road, but primarily the number of vehicles or pedestrians. This location, we evaluated it. We also evaluated Hawthorne. We combined the 2. We said, let's see if we put all the movements at one location. Under no scenario does this, either the Great Western Trail or Hawthorne, come anywhere near meeting the criteria for a traffic signal in the MUTCD. So that takes us out of a traffic signal and puts us into some other kind of a traffic control device. The device that was recommended so far by the consultant is this pedestrian hybrid beacon. Sometimes it's called a Hawk. There really aren't any of these, certainly not in DuPage County for pedestrians. There's one, if you're familiar with the fire station on Bloomingdale Road, that's just south of US 20, Bloomingdale Fire Protection District. There is a Hawk outside the fire station. So if you ever see that get activated, that's what this would be.
And it's only when the fire department pulls out, right?
Right now, for that location, it's only when the fire department comes in. Yes.
And you said that was on Bloomingdale Road.
Bloomingdale Road, yeah. It's just south of Schick and just south of 20. So that's the only Hawk that's in a pedestrian, it's not a pedestrian hybrid beacon because it's for the emergency vehicles. That's the only Hawk that's in use in DuPage County. There's some conditions that we're not yet comfortable with. We've talked to IDOT. I talked to central office at IDOT about applying this type of a device on a 4-lane county highway with the level of traffic we're talking about, the level of control that this provides to the vehicles. It's not a traffic signal. It stays dark, just like the one at the fire station, until somebody pushes the button. And then it gives a walk light and it gives a red, it gives a yellow and then a red for the vehicles, but then it starts a wigwag like you would see at a railroad crossing. The 2 reds flash and drivers don't necessarily know what that means. So we're a little concerned right now, and we want to do some outreach with some other states to find out more about how that really is working for them. Colorado has them, Indiana has them, Wisconsin has them, and just try to get some peer review. But when we talked to the central office of IDOT, they mentioned one location in Champaign. It's not really a comparable circumstance to this. And so even the folks at IDOT were a little reluctant to give us any advice on it. So I want to caveat that by saying that's where, when we look at 1B, it's one of the concerns we have. Now, having said that, the mast arms already exist. So the construction of a pedestrian hybrid beacon would be very straightforward here if we decided to do it. 1A and 1B are kind of complementary. The refuge island would be the same in both. So it would be potentially an incremental step. Looking at alternative 2, which is on the next page, we have, there's a red line showing the path realignment, and this would be for an overpass. And so if you look at the next page, there's an elevation view or a side view of what an overpass would look like. I think we all seen some sort of a bridge like this somewhere. There's one on County Farm Road North. There's one on Ferry Road down west of 59.
No cost.
So
You have an estimated cost?
this would probably be in the $4 million range, $3 to $4 million. And the red lines show kind of what the path realignment would look like to get us to the overpass. The next page, alternative 3, very similar path routing in the blue lines, and that's for an underpass. So again, just nothing out of the ordinary in terms of what it would look like. Yes.
What's the cost for an underpass?
Well, we expect it would be a little bit more. So
Okay.
if an overpass is $3 to $4 million, an underpass would probably be $4 to $5 million.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so they're kind of in the neighborhood with each other.
Okay.
The big difference with an underpass,
Concerned about safety.
Flooding and safety,
Flooding,
yeah.
there's a little bit of concern about safety for some folks.
Yeah, I get it.
Obviously, it would be lit and everything else, but little increased cost.
Oh, I see, okay.
Now, the next 3 pages are true trail realignment. So we look at alternative 4. This would be a reroute of the trail that would take users up to County Farm Road and St. Charles at the traffic signal. It would bring them up County Farm Road and back down County Farm Road. This would involve some path removal. It would involve having to install fences to make sure people aren't crossing mid-block. It also involves improvements at the traffic signal to, right now, that traffic signal does not have any pedestrian accommodations. And there's a note there at the bottom that shows how far out of the way users would have to go taking this alternative. So it's 1,600 feet, which is 0.31 miles. The next page, alternative 5, shows a purple routing. Similar concept, but this would bring the trail farther to the west, on the west side of County Farm, along the side of the baseball fields that Winfield Park District has. On the east side, it would continue to use County Farm as the routing. And then this one's a little bit longer of a path. This is 0.37 miles out of the way for users. And then the final alternative is alternative 6, shown in green. We would eliminate the County Farm portion of the alignment entirely. And so you come up along the west side of the routing would be on the east side of the ball fields in the Winfield. And then we'd go all the way down to Klein Creek and come through the Steve Revenessi Bridge to get back onto the normal path alignment. And this has length of 0.39 miles. So the three realignments are all kind of comparable to one another in terms of length. There's extra costs associated with a couple of the alternatives because you get into some drainage elements and things like that. The final page is a table showing the alternatives that the consultant evaluated and the different factors that are, what's that? Show the different factors that are being considered. And you can see green is favorable, orange is unfavorable, and then blue is neutral. So kind of a spectrum of the colors there. Based on this, what we really find is that alternative one, and for us as we sit here today, it would be 1A, without the beacon, or alternative 5 probably are the two that are the most viable in terms of both constructability and bringing value and benefit to the trail users. I think to your point about the cost, the overpass and the underpass really don't seem to bring the value. They certainly solve some of the concerns that were raised by the committee, but I don't think we'd be good stewards of our funds if we're recommending that for this kind of location. It's certainly viable. And I think there was concerns I heard as I was talking about the realignments, that some of the realignments seem to be a little bit out of where anybody would be thinking to go. So that's why we kind of recommended alternative 1. And if we needed to do a realignment, I think we'd be looking at alternative 5 would probably be the most practical. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so when you're talking about value, are you talking about the amount of people that are using it for the value, or because to me, a bridge over something is the safest, I think, in my viewpoint. So when you're talking about value, I'm just wondering, is it the number of people that you're saying? Is that what you're saying? Cost to people using it? Is that the value?
Well, I think it's a combination of all the different factors that when you look at the ongoing maintenance costs associated with it, the concern Mr. Zay raised about some folks with the underpass being concerned about safety.
Yeah, the underpass. No, I'm talking about.
So we're talking about an overpass.
Yeah.
With the volume of trail users, the potential impact to the sight lines of the residents and other factors, it doesn't mean it's not a bad alternative to consider if that was the direction the committee wanted to go. I don't want to speak for Director Snyder, but in terms of just kind of a cost benefit, if we were to actually do a cost benefit analysis, I think we would find that it would not score well at all.
Okay, so because the number 1, or taking questions, my only concern about that is it is a 4-lane road, right? And then you have that little raised, whatever you call it, cross median.
Yep.
And then the light will only flash if somebody presses it. And then, like you said, it could be confusing because it starts flashing red and people don't know exactly what to do. Right, number 1 or number 2. So we'll come up combination of those two. I don't know, because to me that seems still kind of dangerous. Similar to Chris, when we were talking about on Highland Avenue and Downers Grove, that 4-lane, they wanted a crosswalk, remember, in the middle, and we said it wasn't safe because it was in the middle of a 4-lane highway and cars are going too fast, they're coming around a corner. They may not see, and then hit somebody. So that's my concern with this, unless, you talk with the people at IDOT, like you said, you're gonna do it. So I don't know. And I know the overpass is expensive, $3 million. But we're always talking about helping our people and using money to benefit our community. And maybe if we had a safer crossing, more people would use that trail. I don't know.
Well, to your point, the colors do reflect what you're talking about, because the 1A, which is just the refuge with the current signage, is neutral in the color scheme. 1B shows a nominal safety improvement to be kind of moderately favorable, but the overpass and underpass both are favorable in terms of the safety, because they do eliminate that conflict. With any at-grade crossing, even moving the folks up to the signal at St. Charles, still has them exposed to traffic.
Right.
There's no question about that.
Right. So that's just, if we're going to improve the intersection or that section of road. And, and I mean, not that we are in a unique position right now where we do have a little bit of funds, maybe that might possibly can maybe use, some of them for this. I don't know, but right now the overpass is seeming like the safest to me, the safest remedy, but I don't know. I'm open to others. That's all.
Okay, I'm going to start with member Schwarzy, then member Rutledge, then member DeSarno. So member Schwarzy first.
First of all, I'm not a member of this committee either, and thank you, committee, for allowing me to speak here. Thank you for discussing this, and staff, especially you as well. As you guys know, this has been a passion of mine for the last couple of years, and the reason, the numbers are the numbers. But speaking from experience, this is close to my home, and I travel this route very, very regularly. The current crossing as is, it really puts the onus on the biker. And I mean, as a driver, we all need to be responsible. We all need to be aware that that's there. But speaking from experience, I've seen that the onus is on the biker. And I've driven down this county farm road when bikers refuse to stop. They may take and they come out of the bushes going from west to east. They come out of the bushes, so you don't always see them until they're already in the road. And certainly the numbers aren't showing a lot of accidents, but my perception is I would guarantee there's probably many near misses, because if the biker isn't playing it safe, so to speak, they're going to zip right out without stopping. And I've seen that. I've actually seen that happen for sure. So on more than one occasion. So I feel like something needs to be done. So thank you very much for looking at this. And there are some good options here, but please don't not do anything. That's my request to this committee.
Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair Ozak. So your ADT number, the average daily trail users, when did you count that?
So we did counts this past summer in April, May, and June. And they were counted we did a Saturday and Sunday. We took the higher of the two, and I don't want to say we averaged between. April was kind of a less, the weather wasn't as good. But
Right.
May and June, we had very good weather days. So it was a Saturday in May and June made up that number.
And I would expect that July, August, even September would probably see a greater number than that.
We really saw comparable. We didn't do a full day count during, so the average daily is 24 hours.
Okay, so there are more trail users than traffic, actually, according to the numbers you posted.
Compared to Hawthorne and Timber Trails,
Correct.
yes.
So I think I agree with Member Chaplin that we need to make sure that those people are safe, and we can improve that trail greatly by that overpass. Routing things up to St. Charles Road and back, I just don't see that people are going to do that. They're going to take their chances.
We have the same concern. We have the same concern about those alternatives.
Thank you.
Okay, member DeSarno.
And I'm going to say that the unpopular thing is that there's been one accident in 17 years. No, I don't think spending $4 billion in an overpass would be responsible financially. One accident in 17 years. Not worth it.
Thank you. Member Evans.
I know it's expensive, but I really like the idea of the overpass, because just think about how many more people will use it if we put it in. It's not so much a number, a situation of there's only 375 people using it in the summer. Well, think about how many more people would use it if it were made safer. It's very expensive though. And would the bridge have something so people aren't throwing stuff over the side of the overpass onto cars? So that's kind of built in.
Yeah, it would be designed to be the current, and we work with the tollway and some of the other folks. And Sid has a lot of connections with folks who do the bridges for the trails in Chicagoland. So we make sure it was the latest and greatest in terms of that.
And I'm going to ask a historical question. I live a block west of the Taylor Bridge on the Prairie Path, which I believe was constructed, 25 years ago. That was an overpass that was built. And any recent bridge building that we've done with paths, and what was the funding situation? Because I believe the bridge by my house was there was contribution, there was fundraising that was involved, like recollection, but anything recent or?
Right. So the Taylor Street Bridge was rebuilt, if I recall.
No, it didn't exist before. It was new. This is 20, like I said, 25, 30 years ago. So there may have been some improvements, but there was you went down and then you went across and back up.
Okay.
So, and then there was a rebuilt bridge over the east branch of the DuPage River further eastbound. So they've done bridge maintenance on the Prairie Path, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the more recent bridges involving the path system, the Great Western Trail east of here through Lombard, that involved Gray Street and the UP Railroad. It was a series of turns and traffic signals and at-grade railroad crossings. And
Big
so I think it
project.
was a total of 3 separate bridges were constructed at that location. There was county cost participation. That was the lead by Lombard. They actually still own the bridges, and I believe they had federal funds. Very similar to Taylor Street that predates my time here at the county. The county, the EJ and the Illinois Prairie Path Elgin branch at the EJ&E went down and up. And historically, there had been a bridge there, but it became so old and dilapidated, it was removed. And so that bridge was reinstated. The grades were very favorable. So people were going down and up on a poor trail. And so they reinstated the bridge. So that bridge had previously been in existence.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm sorry, Member Garcia.
Yeah, hi. I really appreciate all the points of view on this. You know, I'm always one that's been really passionate about getting bridges built to help not only with people crossing, animal crossing. I'm more about the green bridges, things like that. But my concern is, Chris, is maintenance. If we were to build this, how much would we consider the maintenance of something like this?
Well, hopefully nothing in the first 10 years. And then over time, it'd be like any other bridge structure that we have. You know, you're talking an amount every year. It's not millions of dollars that you would incur.
Okay, because I know we might have the money now. I just want to make sure that this is something that's not going to hurt us in the future in terms of our financials. So, okay.
I will say one of the things about I'm sorry, members,
No, I mean, if we're gonna build a bridge or overpass, I think Geneva and County Farm is much more hazardous than this location. I mean, can we get data on that one? I mean, there are people shooting across. I mean, it is a dangerous crossing there. I mean, here's my other issue. Even if we do spend this money on the overpass, are we gonna, where we're having more accidents is at Hawthorne. People are coming off Great Western Trail. They're going south and cutting across at Hawthorne. Are we gonna eliminate them? That we're gonna take those sidewalks out so they can't get through there on that side?
Yeah, we would remove,
realign.
we remove the sidewalks. We cannot prohibit people from crossing there because the road is still gonna exist, right? So a user who wants to walk along the road and cross the county farm at Hawthorne will still be able to.
Even if we spend $3 to $4 million, people are still inherently gonna go, even when we,
They may, yeah.
on Schmale, when we cut it off there at Gary, or Schmale and
Yeah.
over by Augustino and St. Charles,
We still cross.
people still cross, you still see them picking their bikes up and going over the top of it. I mean, unfortunately, you know, something has to be done. I'm not sure spending
People may
that much
do.
money. Plus, there is a water main from Winfield that's installed on the one side of the street that runs down County Farm Road. Going to that.
Another issue is setting a precedence, because I can think of I'm mainly on the Prairie Path for myself, but Main Street and Lombard, very busy. It depends on the time of day, et cetera, but it depends where you're crossing. And
I mean, staff's alternative is alternative one. I mean, I do want to hear more about these beacons. We always fear about, we've talked about in the committee, where one person understands what it is and the person in the left lane blows through and takes out, you know, the bikers, you know, going through the other way. I mean, ultimately, we want to make sure it's the safest for the people. We don't want to create another hazard that would cause bigger issues for us.
I think when we look at the alternatives we've been given, after speaking with Chris, we could do alternative 1A this summer, where we created an island in the center. And if we do that, we'll also raise visibility because there'll be signage on the island. And so, starting with perhaps the least invasive situation. Did you have a question?
I will comment after you go
Can
ahead.
we cut down some of that? I know we talked about before, on that one side, can we cut down some of the trees and bushes that are over there to give it a more open sight line for people to see?
Yeah, we can work with the adjacent owners. I think the one property owner, maybe the Forest Preserve, so we can certainly work with them.
Yeah.
Then to the east, it's the private association, the new homes that went in. I know whatever's in the county farm road right of way and the Great Western Trail right of way, we
could do.
make, we do pay attention, try to keep that clear. What we're looking for is that triangle that kind of goes 25 feet back and opens it up more. There is signing, we do check it on the trail, to Member Schwarzy's point about, trail users and their habits, as they approach the intersection. It is stop control, on the path. And, you do see, unfortunately, you do see people kind of make that decision to.
We talked about maybe putting something there to make them slow down.
We've talked about,
Like a little rumble, like a rumble strip or something, because I've seen it too. I mean, I live right by Greg, and yeah, you'll see the guy go, and it's, he's usually faster than the one behind him, and it gets scary at
Do
some
you want
point.
the rumble strip for the bike riders or?
For the bike riders, yeah.
Well, that's,
For
and
the bike rider?
living right next to the Prairie Path like I do, they have a stop sign, which is absolutely never
Never.
used. And it's a pretty busy I live next to a commuter parking lot, so right now it's a metro lot that's being used by high school students. And if you are riding your bike at 2:40 in the afternoon, you will die. But they never stop. So if something's gonna happen, it's gonna happen right next to my house, but regardless. But I don't,
The signs, can we do like
I think
the
that.
solar flashing ones that alert people just around the square that's got a kind of lit, that has something on each way that's with the same trail ones you're using, but have an outline of it where it kind of.
That could
to
be
give
part of the
people-
island. Could you do something like a flashing lights along the bike rider
Outline.
sign?
Yeah,
right, we just want to be mindful that that doesn't send a conflicting message to the motorist, that sometimes the line of sight. We could look at both at the trail crossing,
I'll
but
just say
maybe
farther down to
maybe 100 feet
alert them
back.
that upcoming is a trail crossing.
You could do both, really. We could have
Yeah.
alert as you're approaching and then actually have alert when you've got, if we do this center island, have that as a permanent flashing. You've seen it around various stop signs and, okay, Member Schwarzy.
So thank you for this discussion. I know there's concern about the beacon, but please, staff, continue to investigate with these other states, even though Illinois doesn't really have a lot of them, because they may come back to you and say, yeah, this worked great right from the get-go, and I think that's certainly worth.
Ooh, I've got some good contacts in Indiana, and we got other folks who have contacts in Wisconsin, and we're gonna definitely reach out and try to get feedback on a comparable road, on a trail. Everything that we've seen so far has been the fire station or a really narrow residential kind of road.
Low-speed roads,
Yeah, and it's
too.
not comparable.
Member Chapman.
Thank you. So my only concern here is that this intersection has been brought to our attention as a possible hazardous intersection. So if we don't do anything and there's a death or a very bad accident where somebody's made a quadriplegic or right, what is our, hey, we brought this to you, you didn't do something or whatever. That's my first concern. My second concern is, although, like I said, I the beacon with the thing may be okay, but like as Member Zay mentioned, even if you have those flashing lights, it's 4 lanes and somebody that stops and you can go through, people are distracted on their phones. We're seeing, although not as bad as accidents, we're seeing more accidents because people are texting and not paying attention. And just from my personal thing, I love bike riding and I love bikes, but when I'm driving, here's me. I hate these bikers on the road because it's very scary for the driver. To me, if we can get bikers as much off the road and from those intersections, I think that's the best thing we can do. And honestly, I mean, I know it's a huge thing for infrastructure, but that's part of what, governments do. We do build bridges, we do build things like that to make it safer and more, keep traffic flowing too, so that they don't have to stop for these bicycles on the road, right? Then we keep our traffic flowing, you have less rear end maybe accidents, somebody at that crossing that stopped and somebody that wasn't aware, right? So, those are just my thoughts on it. I'm
I'm
kind of
concerned about precedents though, because when I start thinking about various intersections, we've got the Great West at Park Boulevard in Glen Ellen, just north of the Five Corners. And there's really no signaling there, and we've done considerably more already at this site. So I think we're heading down a difficult road when we start talking about $4 million bridge, $4 million all over the county.
Yeah.
We could end up with a situation where we've built things that we can't maintain down the road, et cetera. So I'm hesitant. I feel like starting.
Information on.
I think we want to do something. We're not, it's not
Do
the point
something
that we're
this
not gonna
summer.
do something.
I
We're
can
gonna,
do something starting with the traffic island is what I think I'd like to see. And then look into going to the second to alternative 1A, these, what are we calling these beacons? And
Cutting the bush.
I
Yeah,
think
cutting bushes.
even cutting bushes and even starting with this traffic. And I could also definitely see this at Park Boulevard too, where we have a lot of things going on there. There's a bus depot and the highway department and a storage facility, whatever. So it might be a good start to have this as a policy to start with these islands, if it's practical on these 4-lane roads, because we also have to look at the traffic count on these, like Park Boulevard, I'm gonna guess is definitely below what County Farm Road is. But do we set standards in terms of how many, how many drivers per day, how many users per day for the path, et cetera. So I'm leaning towards starting with 1A and then taking it from there and seeing what we can do to further. Member Torrentor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I drive County Farm Road 4 days a week, coming here or or otherwise. There's a lot of people that cross County Farm at Geneva and St. Charles Road, even with a stoplight.
Yeah.
That doesn't stop them from trying to cut across. So there's no question that an overpass is the safest thing. But to Member DeSart's point, we've got one accident. My question is, there's an overpass at Lake Street in Rosedale, at Bloomingdale.
Yeah, big one.
Now, I am County Farm Road's County Farm, Lake Street's a state road. I remember when that was built, there was significant money that came from the state. Senator Pancor brought a lot of money and basically built it. Do you have to have a state road to get state money for an overpass?
no, we have the one on County Farm up in Hanover Park that we put in.
So,
That was joint
I mean,
with,
perhaps
Ford
if
Reserve.
we're even going to go that route, we need to contact
Examine.
our state representatives to see if we can get some money, because state's got a lot of money
That's
too.
a good idea, Sam.
Yes.
So, I mean, but of us bearing the brunt of all of that if we were to go that route, so.
I think we should put Member Schwarzy in charge.
Yeah. Members were delivered.
I raise my hand on that.
I say we have all of District 6 on that. So,
No, I mean, if we could bring it
But
up
that
to
would
our
be-
legislators, and if we could get some money, I mean, I'd be in all in favor of it if we could get. some.
Even federal money.
Somebody run in the legislative committee and tell the members to start that that's what we want to do, put it on our legislative
Yeah,
agenda.
that's great.
that would
Oh,
be-
yeah, she'll really be happy with
But
that.
that would also be good in terms of the precedent issue that I'm talking about. When we start to do it, and there's a lot of places where we could probably use overpasses, but can.
Right, and to your question too about liability,
Okay.
you know, again, I think if we're gonna ask legal questions, we need, this the other day, they need to be asked to the state's attorney. But if we got a bike rider who's driving into traffic, that's negligence, and I
Here's the
doubt
element.
very seriously that
Okay.
the county with community and various other kinds of things that we've got available are gonna find ourselves in that situation, but.
Okay, so for today, I'm looking at number 1B, or 1A is my favorite alternative. Member Rutledge.
I just want to say that the trail users are a very vocal part of our community. The very first issue I faced when I got seated in 2019 was trail users. So I just think there's a lot of eyes and a lot of people that will use this improvement if we make that happen.
Now, can I do I'm gonna do a poll. Who would be in favor of us instituting 1A this summer? We are able to do that in-house, right? Correct?
It could be done as part of our annual resurfacing program quite easily.
Are you
Okay,
asking
so-
for direction from the committee members?
I'm asking for direction, not a vote per se.
I'd rather like to see if we can get some money.
I think that would be an ongoing thing. I mean, I think that's something we could
Start
work
with
on.
this for now,
I
because
would think-
what I like about 1A is that it also would increase visibility immediately at the intersection. So as you're coming up to it, and perhaps we could do even more signage as you approach, but it would give you an immediate, it also gives an oasis when you're crossing, et cetera. So,
I agree, and a bridge is gonna take years.
well,
I mean, that's the thing. We just can't sit here and say, well, we're gonna build a bridge. That could take 4 or 5 years, land acquisition, engineering, obviously, you'd have to do all that. I mean,
and we could continue to explore 1B, the
one
beacon.
B with the staff said to get more information on, see. if-
So we've done something, and we've said something that we can also use as precedent in other areas. So, member
Yeah.
Evans.
I was gonna say, if we do 1A, that doesn't preclude us to.
Exactly,
moving
this would be
forward with something else. I
a
think
first
we should do
effort
something.
to, first of all, just definitely highlight the intersection and take it from there. So,
No, I agree. I think 1A, and then we can look for funding. And we built that bridge in Aurora, or right over the Aurora train tracks. What was that big, beautiful bridge? Oh, gosh, it was right on the border of Kane and
Oh.
DuPage.
You mean Ogden Avenue over the train?
Yes, it must have been Ogden Avenue,
No,
over
that
the train
was, yeah, that
towards
was the
Aurora.
settlement for the EJ&E buyout.
Yes.
So they were able to bring 67%.
But if we have, yeah, and then let's
oh, see,
maybe talk,
that's,
remember, maybe Chair Ozark talk with Chair Desart on the legislative about looking for federal and state funding and for the bridge. And yeah, I think it's a good plan going forward.
okay, so I have the general consensus. We will discuss 1A and hopefully for this summer. So we'll talk about that and bring it forward.
And we'll continue to research 1B. I heard
Yes.
flashing red stop signs, cutting back the brush. Look to a state funding opportunity, federal funding opportunity. But definitely don't pump the brakes or stop on any of the other, what else, more,
I think District 6 would be happy to meet with Senator Lewis and Representative Grant in that area and say, hey, we can get a little write-up from staff with this and say, hey, this is what we're talking about. What's the worst they can say?
That's right.
No, I mean, that's, it's
Okay, but
it's
we
worth.
can start with
it's worth a
increased
chance.
visibility this summer with the traffic island and take it from there. Okay, that sounds good.
I mean, I saw Greg go by on his bike. I actually accelerated. He's, for an older guy, he's kind of quick.
I have an electric bike. Do we have any new business? Any new business, folks? No new business? Okay, in that case, I'm going to move to adjourn. All in favor?
All right.
Okay, thank you.